Hello, I'm Lucas, this is Bit of Lit, and maybe you can hear some whirring sound in the back. That would be my computer, which I went to go fix today, finally, because I had the money. I started working again last month, so it felt very nice to have some income after not having any for most the whole year, essentially. But yeah, I'd like to do two things in this video. I'd like to do a little bit of a Friday Reads and also a review of Carrie by Stephen King. Because as much as I don't like his writing, I do enjoy torturing myself, and yeah. So let's just talk about the books that I read, and then I'll talk about Carrie at the end. Most of these, if not all, I read for work, for one reason or another. Or I read it thinking it was for work, and it ended up just being for enjoyment because I read the wrong book. Anyway, a lot of these are kids' books, but you know, I enjoyed them all, so I feel like that is the mark of a good book. Or definitely the mark of a good children's book. If you can still enjoy it as an adult, then there's no reason to look down upon children's literature, you know. It's very formative for kids. And I work with kids, so that's great. Anyway, I read Arthur's Reading Race by Marc Brown, which is just a quick story between Arthur and DW, and they're having a reading race, and if she can read 10 words, he'll buy her ice cream. And I enjoyed that story. That was very fun. And then I also read Dinosaurs Before Dark, which is the Magic Treehouse, the first Magic Treehouse, which I never read as a kid. I also never read Arthur. I think I watched Arthur. But yeah, it was good fun. I didn't really enjoy it as much as Arthur's Reading Race, but I read that for work too. It's kind of cool how the dinosaurs are introduced. Yeah, I think it was a good book anyway. And then I read 3 books in the Wayside School omnibus, I guess, collection. I read, let's see, the first one I read was Wayside School is Falling Down, which is just madness. It is complete madness. They're all by Louis Sachar, who I had only ever read wholes by him, but I had never read the Wayside School books, and I didn't know what I was getting into, but my good friend told me that he recently bought wholes, and Wayside School, I think Wayside School is Falling Down, and he said, I loved them as a kid. It was formative for my sense of humor. And I thought, okay, well, I think this is one I have to read for work. It was not, but it's just madness. There's these kids who are just, they're all just really wacky. It's really fun. And there's 30 different chapters. This book has 3 chapter 19s, which is a play on Floor 19, which doesn't exist, and has a teacher that doesn't exist. Anyway, I also read Sideways Stories from Wayside School, which is the first book to introduce you to Wayside School and the wackiness of it all, and it's just really amazing. I really love these books. And the book I actually had to read for work was Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger, and I did enjoy this book, but I think I had read too many of them at once, and I didn't enjoy it as much. It still had a lot of great humor. I did a video for the poems, the color poems that the kids had to write about their favorite color for Poetry Thursday, because I still love this book. I love all 3 of them. And I will eventually read the rest just because I never read them. I still enjoyed them, but, you know, it's going to be a while. Because I need a little bit of a break away from the wackiness, similar to in the same way that I need a break from Discworld series, which I want to keep reading, but that sense of humor is really fun and light and enjoyable, but if I get too much of it at once, I won't appreciate it for how great it is, you know. So I read all those, and for work, just because I had read it as a kid, but I just I have to read it for work, but I hadn't gotten to it. I read some other ones that I didn't talk about, Cat in the Hat, Click Clack Moo, and some other things like that, which I need to put on, Auto Runs for President, which I need to put on my Goodreads, because that's where I keep track. Anyway, I read Judy Blume's Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. It's so nice to not have to use my phone as my camera. I still keep looking at the screen over here on my camera, which is why you see me looking this way, but then I'm looking here right at the lens. Gotta get used to that, you know? But that is amazing. I love Peter and Fudge and Dribble and the whole dynamic that those two brothers have with the turtle, Dribble. So, really funny. Of course, I read East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I made a whole bunch of videos for that, for each part. Tremendous work. I don't really like the first 3 parts nearly as much. They're kind of like the framework of the whole narrative, and part 4 is where the good stuff really is. I made a whole bunch of videos for that, though. Fantastic. I really love John Steinbeck. Not somebody, I did notice a lot of flaws. Rereading it, it used to be my favorite book. It's not anymore, but it's still really good. It ranks high for me. You know, I can still praise it all day. I could also tear it apart if I wanted. Anyway, and then of course, currently I am reading, there it is. Sorry about that. Richard Adams' Watership Down, and this is also a reread. I genuinely love this book. It is it's amazing. It's just, I feel for these rabbits. I'm worried for them. I'm concerned for them. I feel their pains and hurts and sorrows and you know, their fears. And I'm not very far. I haven't been feeling very well, just because I haven't been sleeping. So I need to get to doing that. But yeah, I'm reading this right now. It's better than I remember, and I'm looking forward to continuing Watership Down. And the last book that I read, and I should mention the books that I will read. I don't know. I don't really plan these things out, so who knows? But the last book that I read was Carrie by Stephen King, and I read that on my Kindle, and I should have just put my phone down, and I didn't. But I read that on my Kindle. I thought I would return to Stephen King just to give him a shot. I read a couple of his books. I read Salem's Lot, which I did enjoy. I think it's probably the best book of his that I've read. There's all kinds of things I really don't like about it. I've read The Shining, which I read last year, and The Shining is the funniest book I've ever read in my life. It is so not scary while it's trying to be scary, and it is a work of art for how bad it is, and I love it, or how ineffective it is. There are moments that actually do work, like when Jack and what is his wife's name? Wendy are fighting. That was actually scary. But anyway, I've read, what else have I read? I've read a few short stories, 4 Seasons, that collection of novellas. I've read The Jaunt, which is my favorite short story by him. I have read Joe Hill's, his son's, one of his books, and that is a garbage book. But let's talk about Carrie, his very first book. Which is, of course, as you probably know, maybe just from watching the original or one of the sequels or one of the many, many, many remakes. I think there was a recent remake with I don't know her name, but it didn't really make a lot of sense because she's really pretty and Carrie is not. In the book, it's interesting because I'm familiar with I think there's a remake in the 90s and a sequel too, where they go to like a house party. I have that burned into my head, but I'm used to like Sissy Spacek, I hope that's how you say her name, who's also pretty, but she has some different features, I guess, than the other kids. And anyway, in the book she's kind of pudgy and everyone is a bully to her. I don't remember in the movie, I'm sure they all are. Everyone is a bully to her. She has her period in the very beginning and she has no idea what's going on. She thinks she's bleeding to death, and everyone throws tampons at her and other feminine hygiene products, pads maybe, and she sort of has her powers come out without her knowing what's really going on. This book is written in a way, it's kind of, what is that term? Epistolary? Like, it's kind of like Dracula, where you have different perspectives kind of put together from different journals or different letters written. It's kind of like that because it's like different excerpts from books talking about the event with Carrie White. Anyway, she's bullied throughout this, and her mother is a nutjob, super hyper religious woman that never taught her anything and like shames her deeply and just is not a very good parent. And you know, a lot of this stuff kind of keeps going along. We get different takes on telekinesis and all this stuff because Stephen King, for whatever reason, decided we need an explanation for why this woman has magic powers that are genetic. No, don't do that, okay? I will accept it. Just make it work, okay? I will accept this. I don't believe in it. I don't need a reason why it exists, except, oh, people can do telekinesis. Got it. Cool. Done. Anyway. Anyway, eventually she's invited to prom, where everyone decides to pull a big prank on her and spill pig's blood on her, and she brutally murders everybody, and it's, you know, it's beautiful. It is beautiful because all these people are terrible, and, you know, she leaves and lots of people die, and including her mother. You know the story. I don't need to explain it to you. Let me talk about the things that I like in the next 2 minutes because this is going on quite a while. I do like the epistolary style. That's different excerpts from different things. That's about it. Usually when I read Stephen King, when I return to Stephen King, it's because, okay, I have this book in my Kindle because I bought it because I thought, oh, everyone loves Stephen King. People in my family love Stephen King. I will try once again to not feel like I'm being tortured. And when I read The Shining, for a while I was feeling tortured, and then it got to the point where it was so ludicrous. I loved it. I love The Shining because it is so ineffective, and it's magic. But this book, it's boring. It is just boring to me because I don't understand why he feels the need to explain why she has telekinetic powers. Maybe the book reading market of that time would not accept that kind of thing without explanation. I really don't know, because it doesn't matter why she has this power. I can understand feeling the need to explain why she has this power so that the story can work, but it doesn't work because I don't care why she has the power. I just want to see her do it. Also, another thing that really annoys me is that she tries flexing her power, as she says, flex, flex, flex in her head. She tries flexing her power And, you know, some strange things happen around her, and there's this whole debate in the scholarly research about telekinesis. If the first event of her telekinetic powers coming to be is really when she has her period for the first time, which comes pretty late, which they mention quite a bit. Anyway, forgot what I was saying. Something about telekinetic power. Oh, yeah. Or maybe it came before, and it talks about the heritage, how it's passed down conveniently from both sides of her family, so that this can happen, which just made me angry. Why is telekinesis genetic? Why don't other people have it? It's a recessive gene. Well, you know what? I have plenty of recessive genes that people can see, right? So do other people. So would a lot of other people in the school. So why don't they have telekinetic powers? I wonder. I think, you know, there was a whole thing mentioned about, like, some rocks coming down from space, I guess. Now, it feels like a blur in my head right now, but there was a whole thing about rocks coming down, and that, wow, I'm totally blanking. I think that's how her father died. But why, if this is genetic, it could be really rare, right? But why is it genetic? Why? It's like the Force in midichlorians. You didn't need to do that, okay? It just doesn't need to be genetic. I can't say it enough. Other people should have this power. This should not be a really rare occurrence. If it is genetic, I mean, they do talk. You know, he tries to explain that, okay, yeah, we've been doing some research for a while, but now because it's important to the plot, we're really focusing on our research here because it's so scary and mysterious. It's not. It's just boring. I don't need to know that telekinesis is genetic. And I keep saying the same thing because that's all I could think. Why is this genetic? I'm sorry. I digress. Why are we doing research only on this girl? Why is she the only one who has this genetic recessive trait? Why aren't there more cases than are mentioned in the other studies? Even if there are answers that I just didn't pick up on, there shouldn't be, because this isn't something that should have been talked about. And that's all I can say. This book was boring because it over-explained itself. I did enjoy her brutally murdering everybody because they were all jerks and they deserved it. But yeah, anyway, this was a boring book, bordering on bad. No, actually, it was just a bad book. Just, you know, if you disagree, if you feel like I'm being too harsh about it, well, I digress, you know, okay? Please let me know what you think of Carrie. I couldn't get over the fact that it was genetic. That really drives me insane. Don't explain this. Just let it be and make it work in another way, okay? Thank you. Goodbye.